So at the time, only 2 minutes out. So.
Yeah, so actually, yes. So Rogers, people watch us on YouTube, they'll see that we are going live there, and we're about ready to go live on Facebook. So we don't know if this will work for those that are watching, but I'll know in a minute if we're going. But
It's hard to.
I need to give me some binoculars.
Yeah, I'm squinting here, so I don't feel like the Lone Ranger. That's funny. Oh my goodness.
Southern Porches is looking for an entity. If we're doing this right,
If we got the show going.
And again, we are looking for an intern stage manager. Yeah, we're going out there live. So Roger, it's another Tuesday on the porch.
Here we are at the porch, live in South Carolina. Only word for it, sweet. humid, but very sweet. Yeah, I love living in South Carolina. Good stuff.
Well, I start to get our information shared. Why don't you talk a little bit about our topic today, the power of timeout? And
yeah, with us just getting past Memorial Day, this subject came front and center. I just saw in my family how they were just going, pushing, doing, just getting it, and how that was wearing. They were running the engine too hard and too long. And I said, it's at some point, you guys have just got to shift it into neutral for a while. You've just got to back off, and almost like they needed permission. That wasn't something that they had readily thought of, but they took advantage of that. And the great thing about living in South Carolina is the beaches are just a couple hours away from here. And so they got in the car and went to the beach, stayed two days, and boy, talk about an attitude adjustment, Rick. Was a wonderful attitude adjustment. And that reminded me how powerful it is for anybody to take a timeout. That we have gotten to a place where we're pushers. We're not flowers. There's just not a natural moment. We just feel like if we push it, work it, it's gonna produce better for us. And that is just not proven to be true. I know that there's some research that shows that, people after a certain amount of work naturally lower in their productivity. That you're not getting more out of people. In fact, you're getting less out of people. They're there longer, but they're producing less, not because they don't want to produce more, they just can't produce more. And the belief that we've just got to have the pedal to the metal emotionally is damaging to us. It's damaging to people, and they can't keep up, and they falter and fall. And the other side of that is that a lot of people, realizing that they just don't have the ability to keep it going, medicate with alcohol, with drugs, with sex, as a way to keep it going, and they don't realize how destructive that is. And I think about people I went to high school with who were just heavy partiers, aren't with us anymore. They hit it hard, but they didn't live long. And people that were better flowers tend to be hanging in there.
And what you just got through saying, though, is there was a reason that during the creation that on the seventh day God rested, because that was not that God needed rest. That was his example to mankind.
Right.
That, yes, you work to create, but we are designed in his image to also, that side of it is that he knew that man needed rest, and that was his example.
Yeah, and it's fascinating how people, there it is, clear as day in the Bible, rest. But somehow they think they're smarter than God.
Mm-hmm.
I got this. I'm going to work this out. I'll get this done. And they delude themselves, Rick. They delude that the quality of what they're doing and the quality of what they're being able to put out there, and don't realize it's not that good.
You know,
it gets by. I mean, they put something out there, but the quality of it's just not that good.
And here's I think, astonishing fact. I was listening. We were talking about what you listen to in podcasts, and I like to listen to different podcasts too. And one of them is the People's Pharmacy, and I really like the Gradens. But one of the things they were talking kind of on this subject the other day, and we have here in the United States of America, with the good old American work ethic, have 5% of the world's population, but we consume 95% of the antidepressant medications that's out there in the world.
Right. I mean, it's just like if you've got a high-powered engine, it's not going to run off regular gas. You're going to have to get supercharged gas. You're going to have to get racing gas to move it. And the other side is it's going to burn your engine up. And that's really what we're talking about today. We're talking about people burning out. We're talking about, it just happens. But boy, getting people out of the house and getting them into a car and moving someplace, wow. And it's not that much here, not that much time in Oklahoma. It was near impossible. You know, I was a teenager before I ever saw the ocean. Now I just can't say it enough. But it's interesting how, you know, people, and like you're talking about, we're close to the mountains, they have events to be out in the country. They had events to go to the beach. They had events in which they were set up and encouraged and structured. And I really believe that is powerful. I believe that's something we need to do, is that we need to structure and plan. And a family that structures and plans and says, you know, on this time, we're going here. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to put it together. You know, seems kind of set up, but in truth, it's really powerful. It seems kind of restrictive, but it's really freeing. That in the midst of it, of the structure, people engage with the environment, and it makes a difference again in their soul, in their head, in their makeup. They're better for it. And we've skipped a whole, I want to say, a couple of generations of or decades of, you know, go, do, achieve, acquire. And we're just now, I believe, come to the place of seeing the cost of that philosophy. And that, you know, there's a reason, we were talking about this before the show, there's a reason they pay certain coaches millions of dollars to watch their teams go back and forth. And when you think that a coach is just a glorified spectator, you've missed the loop.
Right.
You know, their ability to use timeouts strategically in a way but first they've got to know the personality of their team. But a coach who understands the personality of the team and understand how timeouts can replenish the team, refocus the team. Rick, how many times have you heard teams that went into the locker room losing and came out and the announcer says, wow, it seems like this is a different team. Yeah. Woo! I mean, that's you know, amazing. But I think what I'm saying today, I think what we're saying today is that same kind of philosophy happens in families. You know, when I say people, before they take a timeout and give themselves a breather and let it go, and then they come back, and wow, the one thing I think they gain from that is flexibility. Mm-hmm. I think they're rigid and anything break them in a second. And everything is a tragedy. It's terrible. But they go off, you know, and you're a great example that you're about to break. But it's amazing when you all went on the cruise.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what a great, and you said, oh, we met these people. Well, my thinking is, well, you meet those people on downtown, but somehow meeting them on a cruise
Mm-hmm.
and interacting with them made a difference to your soul, to handle your ability, your flexibility, your movability in life after that.
Exactly. And I do like the analogy of the team coach and taking time out and then make an application to both self, family, and career. Because again, yes, the timeout is part of it. A lot of times the coaches use timeouts to give their team a little bit of a rest. But if you notice, they don't tell the team to sit down and take a breather. They gather up, and during that timeout, they are looking at what has worked, what hasn't worked, and where do we go next. And you're right, there's been many teams that have come from a deficit and have won because of the use of timeouts. And they'll come into those timeouts sharing the information they have and saying this opponent is weak on the left side of the court or strong on the right side of the court, and they use their timeouts to regroup and come up with a new plan.
And I love the word regroup. Another one I would think of is refocus.
Right.
You know, how many times in life have you got unknowingly out of focus? I mean, you didn't mean to be out of focus. You were doing it, but in the process, you didn't realize I've lost focus. And I am working harder, not smarter.
Mm-hmm.
And so how it's just it wears you out, and it wears the people who deal with you out. And so it's like, wow. But again, if you have a good a place with a therapist, with a coach that helps you refocus, okay. If your agenda is to win, and very few people I've ever found I'm just showing up. I'm not trying to win. Wow, I don't run with those kind of people. But most people I say they want to win, and they're busting it. It's not like they're not trying, and they don't have their God-given abilities and gifts, but they are out of focus, and they don't know, and they need someone that step back a little bit and say, here, let me see if I can help you get back focused. And when people get back focused, it's life-changing to watch. I think that's certainly one of the reasons I ever got into therapy, was that moment, to watch people who were out of focus and after spending time with you, got back into focus. And nothing's more exciting than watching a sports team go in out of focus, losing all over the place, and come back and be, in the zone.
Yeah. And of course, the sports, the win is always driven by the final score. Yet a good coach, and we see this in college football a lot, that at the beginning of the season, you'll have a nationally ranked team playing an unranked, and actually a team much less quality of them. But the coach on the team that's not nationally ranked will see a win as an opportunity for that team to look at how a nationally ranked team operates, to play against a nationally ranked team, to see how his team does in the face of a stronger opposition, and how they gel together as a team. And a lot of times in life, we got to really make sure we define what is it that defines winning for us. If it's just having a big bank account, are you really winning if you're losing your connections to your family and your friends? Is it having the latest sports car? Again, if it's losing with your employees who are working for you. We were kind of joking a little before the show, but there's we won't say his name, but you can go on the website and see it. There's another televangelist out there who needs to get now.
I couldn't believe the story. Go on. You guys aren't going to believe the story. I couldn't believe it when I heard it. I mean, there was a piece of me. Other piece, I went, oh, there we go.
Asking his donors for $54 million so he can get a jet to fly non-stop.
Because it was an imposition for him to land the plane, refuel it, and get back up in the air. So he wanted a plane that could fly farther on a bigger tank of gas. And he wants his followers to him. I was like, oh my goodness, oh, we have lost. Wow, wow. Incredible. That was incredible, Rick.
Yeah, so I don't, I kind of have an idea how he defines winning. But yeah, how do I define winning in my life?
Beautiful. Yes, that's so important. Because I love the phrase. I love the phrase. Even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat.
You're still a rat. Yeah,
exactly. I was like, oh man, that's profound. Like, oh gosh, even if I win, and how many people think, Rick? How many people have you seen stomp on other people to get an inch ahead? They thought. And I thought, well, right. is that really going to be worth it in the long run? Are you really going to be glad you stomped on people, you hurt people, you lied, you cheated, you steal to get there? It's like, oh man. And it's like the glorification of gangsterhood. Yeah, whatever I got to do to get wherever I got to go, if I got to stomp on people, but oh man, what good is it? And I love that we're back to the Bible of what benefit to gain everything and lose his soul, and no soul. There is no amount of money that covers ugly. There just isn't, and it's so important to take the time out to say, wait a minute, I need to reconnections. I've lost connections. I've lost connections with me, lost connections with the people who care about me. And how many times have you heard people in marriage counseling who say, I want out of this marriage because you're no longer the person I married. Yeah. I thought I was marrying this person. You led me to believe this is the way to have what this is what you've become. If I'd have known that, I would have never gone down the aisle for you. That would have never happened to me.
And a lot of times, that word refocus or lack of refocus, any relationship always requires focusing, because as human beings, we do change. And if we're doing life right, we're changing for the better. But if we're not changing together and we're not refocusing what our relationship is supposed to be, then that's where we get in these situations of,
oh man, that's scary, Rick. You're not the person, but man, I like this new person.
Well, or you might be the one growing and the other one's not growing. One you're growing is again, we throughout life are
developing
to grow. You have to grow spiritually, physically, and emotionally.
Yeah.
And if one is not growing spiritually, physically, or emotionally, the other one's staying behind. Maybe you're better, but that can create conflict, as well as the other way, thinking that one person just isn't presenting themselves as one way.
The one thing was men say to women, don't ever change. And women say to men, I hope you change. Yeah. That then becomes an issue. But I think I love that out of this timeout talk, the word I see really making a difference is focusing. Mm-hmm. The power of focus. And us both saying that we know in our own lives, in our own marriages, in other people's lives, the destruction that has come, that getting out of focus, that in the process of getting it done, focus, and how important. It's also interesting, if we're talking about sports, hearing old players from their coach talking about their coach, talking about that moment, and what a glorious time it was for them, and how they respected discipline, and how important that was for them, and how much they cared enough. I can remember when I was in high school, And so I was complaining about yelling at me. And they said, take that as a compliment because they're noticing you. The one thing you want to be concerned about is when they never talk to you because they've already given up.
Yeah.
And that's a piece of this is I think time outs in people's lives allow them to reconnect, to come to it's easy to wear out the connection and in that lose the focus in a relationship. I don't see too many people who say, well, I meant for this marriage to fail. I meant to get in this affair. I meant for this to go wrong. I don't hear many people purposely drive things into the ground. No. But people that I thought, oh, they got it made. This is wonderful. They're meant for each other. If they're not fine tuning that baby all the time, if they're not taking a time out and reconnecting, then what I'm hearing from you is naturally they're going to end up in a not good place.
Yeah, and there's two words that now I think we can join together, and focus and discipline are two major words, but we have to understand again, what does that mean? And where I go with this is you and I was both talk to people and, say, okay, what is your real desire? What's your real passion in life? And if they say, I want to be a web developer. Okay, great. So how are you going towards that? When you go home tonight, so how are you going to be the web developer if you know nothing about web development? Where's the discipline? Instead of going home, you're going to go home and either watch YouTube tutorials, you're going to get books from the library, you're going to sign up for a class at the local community college. And then the focus has to be, if this is your goal, you have to have the discipline and focus for it. We all can say we want to be, but if we don't put the discipline and focus into it, it's always going to be we want to be. And that, if you will put that on your tombstone, I wanted to be a web developer.
Well, I sure wish I had been a web developer.
But I was still selling shoes.
Was not successful at that. The great Billy Graham had trouble selling shoes, but he later changed focus, got connected, and became the world's greatest evangelist before he left this world.
And there's nothing wrong with shoe salesman. We're just saying, if you want to be a web developer, you can be a shoe salesman while you're developing your skills on web development. Yeah.
Right, and part of what we're saying is it's heart, mind, and soul into something. If you put your heart, mind, and soul into selling shoes, then that's the greatest thing in the world. Which reminds me of another story that says they send two shoe salesmen to Africa to sell shoes. And one sends a telegram back, says, please bring me back home. Nobody here wears shoes. And the other guy sent a telegram that says, send another boat of shoes. Nobody here wears shoes.
So that's a great story.
Wow. Yeah. There it is. Is the glass half empty or half full? It doesn't matter. It's got water in it. Wow, there's the beauty of it. And again, part of what we're saying today is it's hard to recognize without stepping back. It's hard to connect or reconnect when you're so close. You can't see the trees for the forest. You've got to get perspective. And perspective directed and disciplined creates focus. And once you have focus, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. Because the world, I mean, boy, especially through the internet, you see people who came from nothing, had a background when people didn't have anything. And they rose to great heights with little advantage. But boy, they were laser focused. And they did what it took. They got up every day and they had to do. And there's another thing I saw on the internet, the great internet, was they had, I guess, one of the big generals on the internet talking about success. And he said, the most important thing is the first thing when you wake up, make your bed. He said, that is the most important message in the military.
Well,
Yeah, it's a get up the moment, watching whatever. I make the bed. And it somehow changes the dynamics in me. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm doing that. And again, as I'm getting older, I see how important it is to take that time out.
mm-hmm.
You know, of saying, and like you said, it doesn't have to be the beach. It could be the mountains. You know, how many times have you been up there in a little cabin in the middle of nowhere and thinking, sweet,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I can remember going to a place in Hawaii, and one of the requirements was no TV, no phone, no electronics. It was just the basics. And it was amazing. It was so quiet and peaceful, and people were eating together and talking because no phones.
Right.
You know, and late at night, people were talking and sharing, no TVs. And that was, people were paying extra money to go to that type of environment. And I saw the beauty of that. I thought, wow. Excuse me. You know, they did it on purpose. They built that on purpose. People, you know, and it's continuing to thrive because there are people who are willing to pay to disconnect. iPad in front of him, you've lost him.
Yeah.
6 hours. He's there physically, but he's not communicating. He's not eating. He's not interacting. He might as well, you know, be floating on a cloud somewhere.
And again, we've had technology long enough where they're now able to do studies that can be substantiated. And again, you know, it's like anything in life, in the right balance, everything can be either good or bad. But we are seeing that humankind in itself, in that use technology such as the iPad, the computers, are losing their ability to focus. And there's a lot being written on it. And you know, think about it yourself sometimes. You know, if you remember the days you could sit down with a book and read it for a couple of hours, and those hours fly by, you don't even realize the time goes. Now you sit down with a book, and how long can you stay focused on what you're reading?
It's hard,
before
boy.
You're thinking about this or thinking about that, and
you get. I tell you, Rick, you get agitated.
Mm-hmm.
You get agitated. Sit down with a book, and about 2-3 pages in, you're thinking, "Oh, wow, what about it? What about this? What about this?" You know, and that's scary that you get like that.
And a lot of people, and I do too. A lot of people say, "Well, I still like the feel of a book." And there's a lot of truth to that. But I do use my Kindle because I like the, and this is what I'm saying about balance. Balance of the Kindle technology is you can electronically highlight, then that will automatically go into a note section for you. So when you want to go back and review your notes for what you highlighted, it's easy. But on the other hand, I'll get a notification. You got an email came in. Oh, I better check on this. or a message will come in. Oh, I better check on that. And so.
And there's a piece of this, just as you're saying that, Rick, and I'm reminded of spam.
Mm-hmm.
And how people send out destructive spams. And it just, it disturbs me that somebody's sitting around all day coming up with all the intellect they have and all the power they have. Their desire is to infect and ruin other people's equipment. I'm like,
well, their equipment and their bank accounts, and
yes, everything. And it's like, wow, what a disturbing thought that I'm going to spend my time, money, and energy on being destructive. That's so scary.
And so, going back to this idea of the power of time out, we're saying you look at it for an opportunity to refocus, look at it as, again, an opportunity to rest. And timeouts do not have to be long. Again, if you look at the sports world, sometimes in football, there's a 30-second timeout.
Yeah.
But
that can be incredible. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have seen teams, again, the difference between winning the game and losing the game was on a 30-second timeout. What happened was, obviously, the team, but the coach had recognized you guys are out of focus. You have lost the flow. And it's my job, and a great coach is able to refocus and re-energize and re-plug in their crowd. And if they do, they're unstoppable. And how many stories have you heard, Rick, of great players, great teams that couldn't win the game?
Yeah.
You know? And how many stories have you heard of great coaches who had teams wouldn't listen to them, or a player who thought they were better than the team wouldn't listen to them, you know? And, you know, they don't realize it's a team sport, and marriage is a team sport, and families is a team sport. It's not just, you know, my way or the highway. People like to fantasize of the 50s where it was, you know, my way or the highway. And that's what it was. It was a fantasy. That wasn't really how things went. That's how it was projected. But if you lived in that time, it wasn't like that. And there was a lot of dissension, and it was not sustainable. That's the reason it's not around today is it's not sustainable. You couldn't keep that up. And it's important to get the family connected, get the marriage connected, get your own life connected in 2018.
Right. And so if we continue down the road of connecting the dots, we said focus is needed to create discipline, and discipline is needed to create habit. And we have bad habits, we have good habits. It's through discipline that we can break bad habits and develop new habits. And a habit is just that. It's what you become comfortable with. If you say I'm going to go run a marathon today, you're going to be very dissatisfied with your results. I can guarantee you.
Well, I can guarantee you what they wouldn't finish.
Yeah, and exactly. And it's going to, but if you said, I'm going to start taking the discipline of training, and whatever the proper training protocol is to run a marathon and do it right, that becomes a habit. And then the days that you used to say, I'm just going to sleep in, once you create that habit, that sleeping in becomes the unnatural part of it, and you get up and you want to go out, train. And the same thing with your skill sets in relationships, your skill sets in communications, your skills, anything that you want to improve, you have to train at. It just doesn't come naturally. If you want to be a better communicator, you got to train at communication. If you want to have a better relationship, you got to train at what a better relationship is. If you want to be a better employee, you train as to what a better employee does. If you want to be better with interpersonal relationships with people, you get the Dale Carnegie book and you read and you train as to how that is. And then that creates the habits for you, which then will bring ultimately the type of success you want in your goals. For analogy, Tiger Woods was first coached by his dad, but he didn't get so good that he never needed a coach. He always had a coach in golf. Serena Williams, that was on the news this morning.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the picture of her, that was her coach standing behind her as she was getting ready for the French Open.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't go there now and says, I'm good enough. I don't need a coach.
Right. I've got all these trophies. I get it from now. Oh, man, it's amazing. You know, and again, like we were thinking about car racing. You know, how many racers go out by themselves?
Right.
And win. I'm just going to drive this car and it's going to win. I don't hear that. It's a crew. You know, our crew, you hear people who win. You know, what I didn't win, we won.
Mm-hmm.
It was the coordination between us that made all the difference. And how powerful that is, and how productive that can be. But we are kind of sold. You can do it by yourself,
mm-hmm.
and you don't ever need to take a time out. And you just keep running, and you're going to beat everybody else. And what we're trying to share with people today, that's not the truth. It does not work. Don't buy into that. That is something that's been sold to people. Don't buy that emotional product.
Mm-hmm.
Say, wait a minute, what works for me? And what we're talking about today on the porch is things that work for people. You know, we're asking people to stop and go, well, wait a minute. You know, what's the best way? This equipment, this mind, body, and soul I have, it has a particular flow. It has a particular operating structure. And am I operating it for the best of me? Am I operating it for the best of my marriage? Am I operating it for the best of my family? And does that take adjustment? Oh, yeah. And does it take flexibility? Yes, totally. And does it take discipline? You just peace, love, and dope it all the way through. I think people would love for that to be the case. I just hang and go. Well, that isn't the way it works.
And if you go again, I like what you're bringing up on some of these things, the take analogies too. I guess the idea of the race car, especially the NASCAR circuit.
Yeah,
miles a car that could go 500 miles. I don't know, but can the tires?
That's a long time.
Can the tires do 500 miles? Can the driver go 500 miles? And they do have a coach in NASCAR. They have earpieces, and there's always somebody speaking to them as to what's going on, ideas as to
how is the car
running.
How's the? They're constantly, and that's a great analogy there. They're constantly in communication.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's going on. This is the temperature of the engine. This is the way the car's shaking. This is the way I'm seeing the world from here. And so, you sitting over here now know what I'm seeing in here, and our connection together is what's going to do the best. I remember what was the movie that Tom Cruise did with Nicole Kidman about NASCAR? Days of Thunder.
Yeah.
Days of Thunder. Yeah. And Robert Duvall was one of the crew members, and he said, "Oh yeah, this Tom Cruise, when he was first getting in, he could run this faster than anybody else. The problem was the tires couldn't hold up. He could drive it faster than the tires could take it, and that the real winner was the person who could balance the top of the driving with the life of the tire." And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about finding that happy place for you. It's not the same for everybody. It's not, one person likes this, another person likes this. This person works here, this person works there. And it's interesting how people get to a place where they can't hardly recognize their own life, right? Mm-hmm. They just, when you knew, I can remember people that I knew, they had put the clothes on, get the equipment, go out there and spend all day in a field. But when they came back, you could tell they were different. It had fed them to do that. And then you talk to them later on, you say, "When was the last time you went hunting?" And they go, "Oh, I don't hunt anymore. I don't have any guns." And you're like, "What? I thought that was your life." Well, it just didn't work. We're better at feeding our soul. And as we get older, we make excuses to deny the soul, and we're not willing to own up to the consequences. We're not counting the cost of some of our choices, of our decisions. And that's part of this timeout concept on the porch, is we're encouraging people to take into account what you're doing. Again, I love when you took a point. I says, "It's time for us to go on a cruise." I'm like, really? I never thought of that. Yeah. And, you think of how many people who could have literally, and this just drives me crazy, who could have literally saved thousands of dollars if they would have just taken a couple $100 and taken a timeout.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't do that. I can't do that. And what we're saying today is you can't afford not to. You just it is. And how many times have you been in the counseling session where people come in and you say, or you're thinking in your head, you don't need a counselor, you need an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
There's no saving this. You guys are on two ends, and you don't have a mechanism to come together, and you're not willing to entertain the idea of a mechanism to come together. You're not willing to step off that cycle, and how much that's cost you. You know,
right? And again, so we take that into the analogy of the timeout in sports, and like I said, when the teammates get together, and you're right, a marriage is a team. They go in there and they share. This is the challenge that I'm having with this opponent player, but this player is not playing as well as he normally does. And where they go with that is they help each other instead of saying, I need the ball all the time. Just throw it to me, and I'll do it. They say, no, I'm having trouble with this guy's too good of a defender. Give it to whoever. I notice his defender's, tired tonight or something like that.
Right. They and all the analogies that we're talking about, Rick, the key word in the middle of it all is adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to adjust. Saying in this is there's literally no ability to adjust if you don't take a timeout. It is during the strategic timeouts in people's lives that they re-strategize, they refocus. And that turns a losing moment in their life to a winning, successful moment in their lives. And we've seen that over and over again in sports and in life, in marriage, in families, that they came in, they rethought the plan, they went back out.
Mm-hmm.
And giving yourself permission to do that. And probably that's something we need to say on the show today, is what we're talking about easy. In one aspect, like falling off a log is real easy. The other side is, it takes a lot of sweat and energy and tears and anguish, and it is not for the faint of heart. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's good. So, actually, that's where we're probably going to have to end today. Is as we go out there, if you take anything away from there, Ketchup's not a food group, but become chefs in your own life. Be disciplined, but be disciplined with a focus. Remember that we have to either be working on our own adjustments, or you can let somebody else make those adjustments for you. And I can guarantee you'll be a lot happier in life if you are working on your own adjustments. And I see it's pouring rain outside in Greenville. So,
oh man, it is. What is coming down? We're in the middle of a hurricane.
Yeah.
One of the bands of the hurricane. But that's why I was telling somebody the other day. Because of this, we call this place Greenville.
Yep.
If you live in Texas, you don't see that, and they call it Brownsville.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. There's all that. Brownsville, Texas.
Brownsville, Texas, man. You go there, Brown. Yeah.
So with that said, we'll see everybody next Tuesday, 10 a.m. And again, as always, we encourage you, if there's anything you see or want to comment on after we go live, feel free to put comments out there. And if there's any topic or subject you want to hear or talk about, let us know.
Yes.
So we'll see everybody next Tuesday.
Thank you for being part of On the Porch with us.
And as you guys watch me get up again, we'll see you next week. As I close this out. Close it out.
That's a good thing about this show. It always makes me think. I never thought about that. Things that make you go, huh?